didn't want to do landscape. Stupid. Pretty smart.
YouTube. Okay, what's like the
Almost in
almost in
It's just the podcast.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Save off another day. It's an interesting. First of all, let me say I was mad at this one. It's the air that gives me away.
This one. Hi, everybody. If I could grab the candidates, please make your way to the stage. Grab one of the lovely core seats next to me. While everybody is regularly introduce myself, my name is Seth Farmer. All these things, Mayoral Productions is my very own podcast studio. I produce a podcast for Tuesday and Mr. Scott with a couple points, as well as by myself. So my buddy Sam back here in the back who's helping out with our timing panels today.
It's not.
Real quick, I'd like to thank Relics for hosting tonight, as well as their staff. They're volunteering for this, so buy a lot of drinks. They took really generously. We appreciate them for supporting civic engagement because this is important. All right, with all that said, moderators this evening, Jesse Mayoral. He is the co-founder of Compass, an independent local news outlet at CompassDocs.com. He has worked in journalism and communications for 35 years. He's the former editor of the Metropulse and former reporter for the Knoxville News Sentinel, and also served as communication director for former Knoxville Mayor Mayoral. I also have Ali Feinberg with me. She's the political reporter at Knoxville News Sentinel, a USA Today network paper. Pardon me, Bo, I apologize. Where was I? She's reported on politics in Knoxville since March of 2023. Shortly after graduating from the University of Missouri School of Journalism. Her political accountability reporting and public service journalism has been recognized locally and statewide. So, to get us started, each of the candidates is going to have 2 minutes. I didn't turn your microphone on, guys. If you guys hold the color button on yours and turn them on. Start with Bo since he's next to me. Bo is going to have 2 minutes to introduce himself. We're going to work our way down the line. And then Jesse and Ali are going to take over with our series of questions. Thanks again, everybody, for coming out. I'm not a stage person, guys. I apologize. I'm going to let Jesse talk for just a second, and then we're going to do your questions.
So after the opening remarks, we're going to have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. We're going to move into questions. And here's how this is going to work. The first question is one that they have all been provided in advance because we were looking for some pretty specific answers to it. So they will all get a chance to answer that one. And then after each question, so they'll each have 90 seconds to answer each question. After each question, they will each get another 60 seconds to respond to anything they want to respond to or add anything that they want to add about that question. With the caveat that we do ask candidates to refrain from any kind of personal attacks. If there are any kind of personal attacks, whoever is the subject of the attack will get 30 seconds to respond to it. So that's we're going to go. So we will start with Mr. Hawk for his 2-minute opening remarks.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Bo Hawk. I'm Knox County Mayor. I'm a Knox County resident. I'm a renter. I'm a labor leader of the Iron Workers Union. I'm the president of the Central Labor Council, which is 30 plus unions in the area, thousands of workers. And I work for the Building and Construction Trades Council, which is all the laborers, the carpenters, the operating engineers. So I've got a lot of experience fighting for working people and trying to get more opportunities for trades, better jobs for folks in the area. And I'm running because I think that Knox County deserves leadership that puts working families first. We've got a lot of issues faced by working people right now when it comes to housing, affordability, things like that, infrastructure, all that kind of thing goes into that. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'd be honored to earn your support and your vote this August 6th.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. I think I'm taller sitting in that chair than I am standing, but I'm going to stand. My name is Betsy Henderson. Thank you so much for coming out this evening and for having us. I was born and raised here in East Tennessee. My mom, who's here tonight, was born and raised here in East Tennessee as well in Knox County. And my dad came here from Greece when he was 16 years old. His parents put him on a boat through Ellis Island with $50 for a better life and opportunity. And he taught himself English. My dad didn't graduate high school. He met my mom at UT when my mom was a student there, and together they started opening up restaurants together. So they had the Varsity Inn on UT campus and a few other restaurants. And so I'm the daughter of 2 small business owners, and I know when you're a small business owner, you are the CEO, you are the janitor, you are the bookkeeper, which my mom was, and you stock the shelves. So I'm very passionate about promoting and protecting our small businesses here. I graduated from UT in 2001 and moved to DC the week of 9/11 to work for Congressman Duncan. And I met my husband up there. We moved back 12 years ago with our children. They were 3 and 5 at the time, and they're now 15 and 17. We wanted to have a place to raise our children that shared our morals and values, a place where we could afford to live. And so we came back home. In 2020, I ran for the school board during COVID, so I was a driving force to keep our kids in schools, out of masks, and keep small businesses open. I also fought to keep police in schools and get back to basics. Over the past 4 years, we've increased our literacy scores by 10% and our math scores by almost 10% as well. So I'm really proud of the work we've done on the school board. And now I'm looking forward to this opportunity running for Knox County Mayor. Early voting does start tomorrow. We need strong conservative leaders to stand up and make sure that we keep our taxes low, ensure smart growth, and protect our freedoms, and while we love living here in East Tennessee. So thank you so much for having us this evening.
Ms. Frazier.
Good evening. It's great to be in Happy Holler, so thanks for having us. My name is Kim Frazier. I proudly serve as your Knox County Commissioner at Large, Seat 11, and I am pursuing the opportunity to deepen my commitment to the people of Knox County as your next mayor. And I'm running for one reason, and that's you. The hardworking people all across this county who reached out to me, expressed their confidence in me, and asked me to step forward. So I'm doing it for the people of Knox County. So a little bit about me. I grew up the daughter of 2 working class Christian parents on a 120-acre family farm. So I know a little bit about hard work. Professionally, I made Knox County my home over 30 years ago when I met and married my husband, Russ. He's a UT volunteer. We have 2 incredible sons, Jackson and Maddox. They're both students at the University of Tennessee, so go Vols. And yes, my blood does run orange, even though I'm a transplant. In the 30 years I've been here, I've worked as a healthcare executive. I have been the HR director for a global company, and I've owned a small business. And I tell you that because experience matters. Your mayor is the chief executive of a large, complex organization responsible for thousands of people, setting policy, managing budgets, and making sure that your services are delivered efficiently every single day. So the last 15 years, as both a community advocate and as your elected official, I have been addressing the things that impact your daily lives, mostly addressing the impact of growth and development on traditional infrastructure needs. And that is what I will work continue to work on tirelessly as your mayor. I want to balance growth, I want to address our infrastructure, and I want to maintain our essential services. And I know how to do it. I would be honored to earn your vote, and thank you all for being here.
And Mr. Jim.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to come back to Happy Holler and be with you here tonight. My name is Larson J, and I work for you, along with all 500,000 of your closest friends across Knox County, as your commissioner in seat 10. That means I represent everybody from Corrington to Farragut, from Halls to Seymour, and everywhere in between, just like here. I am a 7th generation Tennessean, 2-time graduate of the University of Tennessee. I've lived or worked in 8 different neighborhoods, including right down the street here at Central and Broadway during the college years. And I've got a lot of experience in both philanthropy, business, and now working in our government services. I ran for commission to show up and serve and to find a way to help people on a greater scale. I've had started 6 small businesses and been involved with lots of the early downtown renaissance that has now creeped up the Broadway and the Central Corridor, and was part of the early days of revitalizing downtown, reopening the Bijou, the founder of the Ice Rink on Market Square, helped start a bunch of events, and eventually started Random Acts of Flowers, a charity that we still run today, and then went back into the private sector, and along the way, people asked me to step up and serve, and it seemed like a great opportunity to find a way to be helpful on a greater level, but then I found a great passion for public service, and so I'm really proud of the accomplishments I've had as your commissioner for over 8 years, or almost 8 years, and now applying to be the CEO of your company, your $1 billion company with over 12,000 employees and a very, very big company that helps serve you in 5 core ways every single day. So I love the opportunity to talk tonight, to explain a little bit about my vision for Knox County, earn your vote, and look forward to getting back to work on day 1 come September 1st. So thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Okay. One thing I should mention, enthusiasm is great, but if we can, we want to get through as many questions as possible, if we can hold the rest of the applause until the end, that would be great. And also I want to make sure the candidates are aware of our timekeepers, the young men back there in the corner. They will be holding up paddles indicating when you have 30 seconds left and 10 seconds left. And we will rotate the order of each answer. So we're going to start this next one with Ms. Henderson. This is the prepared question that we sent to the candidates. You'll have 90 seconds to answer, and then again, there will be a 60-second response or continuation. So here is a 2-part question. Please find one item in the 25-26 county budget you feel is overfunded, why, and what would you do with that excess funding? And please find one item in the budget that you feel is underfunded, and where would you get the funding to pay for that? Ms. Henderson.
Yeah, this is a great question to start with. And only one item. So, government can always look at ways to cut back. We can do that in our families. We can do that in our businesses. Any large organization, there's always ways to cut. There's a lot of small things that we can start cutting. From day 1, I've already said that I'm going to put together a STAR commission, which is going to dive into the budget and look for those things to cut, top from bottom. This commission will be made up of small business owners and local citizens. And so just some things that come to my mind just right off the top. Taxpayer-funded lobbyists. This is something we cut out of the school system. We cut that out of the school system 2 years ago, and we've increased our student outcomes. So that saves money right there. Commission or slush funds is something else that can be cut. There's a lot of great things to give your money towards, and if you want to do that, you can use your own money towards those things. So there's a lot of things I think that just right off the top can be cut out. One thing that's underfunded is our roads. We have to prioritize our roads. We have to grow in a way that supports our community, not put strain on our community. And, we've seen a lot of houses popping up, yet our roads are lagging. So we really need to dive into the budget and really look into those things. Those are 2 things I would cut right off the bat. Another thing is money, and start looking into this, money that goes to nonprofits. There's a lot of great nonprofits out there, but they have the ability to raise their own money, so that's something I'm also going to dive into, because government shouldn't be funding nonprofits.
Ms. Frank.
Thank you. So I don't know that many people recognize that we're operating under the same budget that was implemented when Mayor Burchett was in office. And then it was adopted and implemented under Mayor Glenn Jacobs, two of the most fiscally conservative leaders we've had in Knox County in a very long time. One thing that happened during COVID is that we did a workforce reduction, and then we did a hiring freeze. And so there have been a lot of cuts that have been made, and so it's very hard to say that there is a lot of waste or excessive spending in this budget. And so one thing that I would do that's a little bit different is that I would look at operational functions. I have said that first year when you're operating under this current mayor's budget, you have some time to get in there. I will do an internal assessment of all policies, processes, and partnerships across the county departments, and I will identify opportunities for efficiencies. And I know that we can cut some costs there with operational functions. Things that are underfunded, of course, roads. You have to understand how we fund our roads. It's a layered approach. Federal, state, and local taxes, funds, and grants. We also need to strengthen our participation in the Transportation Planning Organization. They funnel those dollars here locally. And we need to go after more TIP money, Transportation Improvement Program dollars. That's what I'll do. And then over the 4 years, I want to take all natural growth on our transportation revenue taxes, our sales tax, gas tax, and wheel tax, and I want to apply that to our paving budget and go from 7 to 20 millions gradually over 4 years, and that will get us at a point where we are no longer falling behind.
Mr. J.
Knox County only provides 5 core services for you every single day. Really simple. Education, safety, infrastructure, health, economic development. That's what we do every single day. We provide 5 core services, and those are essential to sort of the daily life and quality of life that we have, and including your safety, education, infrastructure. One of the things that I think that we're a little overfunded are, and I don't think it's necessarily overfunded, it's just a priority that I probably would change, is in our Parks and Rec department, where we spend a lot of time, a lot of money on programming, but we do that at the deficit of actually improving the parks. So we have these assets that need more infrastructure and more upkeep and more maintenance, but we spend a lot of time on sort of fun parties and things like that that are nice to have but not need to have. I'm not sure exactly why Knox County needs to be in the golf course business. Nice to have, not need to have. So I would really focus on those 5 core services and skinny us down as fast as possible. The thing that I would say is underfunded, and there's a long list of them, but the one that I think hits home the most is our investment in our law enforcement professionals. This is probably the hardest job in all of Knox County government. It's the most dangerous, it's the most difficult. We have people that are working 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs that are trying to just make ends meet. And if we don't have great officers, we don't have a great safe community as a whole. And it is a direct result in what you get back and what you put in. How would we fund that? I've run out of time, but I'm happy to continue talking about it because I'm sure it's not the first bunch of questions you're going to have.
And Mr. Hawk.
So when it comes to PBA management, fiscal year 2026 went up $1 million. It's at $11 million in that budget. And I think that it's really a matter of looking at where this is an expenditure that's not being treated like other expenses in the budget, where there's not any kind of public benchmark or outcomes that are expected or transparency requirements. And I think putting those kind of restrictions on that funding and kind of looking into, I think it is something that we should spend money on, but I think we can look into potentially beneficial reductions there when we renegotiate based on what those outcomes are and if they're met. I think that for what I would put more funding into, in addition to the law enforcement, which I agree with Larson about, I would say that emergency medical services, especially when it comes to response times in the rural parts of the county, I think we really need to bolster that. I think that, as far as I think you also said what we would do with the money that we got back, so it's a separate question for just adding more to the budget, but I think definitely a program where we are giving first responders help assistance with buying a home when they're first time home buyers, I think that would be a really good use of that money.
And we'll have a 60-second follow-up or response. Starting again with Ms. Anderson.
I do want to say when it comes to roads, and there probably is a road question in there perhaps, a lot of people, and Kim did mention it, a lot of our roads are, fall under county, state, and city. And so having those relationships really matter to make sure that we're getting our piece of the pie. I've worked with our state delegation in Nashville. I've gone to Nashville. I've fought for money that we deserve here in Knox County. I brought that money here. And so when it comes to roads, it's just fighting for that piece of pie and having those relationships. That really matters.
So just a quick response. The reason the school board was able to cut their lobbyists is because now the county's lobbyists provides those services. They report on school legislation. And then also, I want to say nonprofits are one of the reasons we can keep your taxes low. They stand in the gap and they provide a program or service that your county should not, because we will just mess it up, or we cannot because of the price tag that's associated with it, or we do provide the program or service, but it doesn't meet the need of our citizens. And so they stand in the gap, and the return on investment is very well worth it.
The second part of your question was how do we fund the thing that I think we have to spend more money on? And the first thing I would do is I would be aggressive about selling assets that Knox County does not need. Knox County owns a ton of land and buildings that you didn't know about. These are your assets. A great example is literally right up the street here at Central North. It is a warehouse for some school supplies, a couple of offices, and some archives in the basement. 3 square blocks of the center of this community that could be redeveloped into an amazing asset. Go back on the tax rolls, be an economic viable option, and it would put money in the bank, reduce our insurance, our liability, and that could be done in business parks and all kinds of other things that we use and we own, but we don't actually utilize it to its fullest potential. And so I would be really aggressive in the first year. I think we're sitting on about $40 or $50 million easily of economic input that would go back into the budget that we could then use to fund it.
And Scott?
As far as funding things, finding other places, I think that when it comes to our hotel occupancy tax, changing the way that we use that tax fund, which is up $500,000. I think it's $12 million right now, but I think carving that out to actually fund workforce development programs in the hospitality industry would be a way to help us with getting more dollars that are going into infrastructure that's being strained by tourism, because the people that work in the county are the ones that make it possible for us to have this tourism that's straining our infrastructure, and I think putting that into the EMS and making sure that people are able to get those services that they did in front of that.
Thank you guys. We're going to move on to the questions that the candidates haven't seen yet. So, how can efforts like the Unified Development Ordinance support sustainable development in Knox County? And what specific changes would you want to make to the direction of the county's planning? We'll start with Commissioner Frazier.
So this is work that I started as a citizen advocate many years ago, advocating on behalf of communities across Knox County about the impact of growth and development on your traditional infrastructure needs. This is something that I talked with 2 administrations and following Mayor James. I said to him, we are going to see a negative economic impact if we don't plan proactively for growth. And he listened. And so it was such a great opportunity for me to actually start that work as a citizen and then turn it into legislation and policy as a commissioner. And what we did is we created 2 really important tools. It's called the Comprehensive Land Use and Transportation Plan. That is a long-range vision and policy framework for growth, and it guides growth in areas where supportive infrastructure is present or planned, and away from areas that it doesn't. And then the second tool is the Unified Development Ordinance. It is rolling into 800 pages of land use policy and regulations. We're streamlining the process. We're elevating our standards and expectations. The other thing that I did was, really looking at what aligns in character reform. How can we build but also preserve the quality of life, the quality of place, and the character of our communities? And that's what the new Unified Development Ordinance will do. It has had a robust engagement from the public. We've had several different stakeholder committees, community meetings, and everyone that you can imagine, from farmers to business owners, they all came together, and this is the plan that we came up with.
Commissioner Jay?
The great thing about government is we love to do plans and study things. The bad thing about government is sometimes we do plans and we don't follow our own plans, or we stick them on the shelf, and then we wait till the next election cycle and we do another plan. What's great about our growth and land use plan is that after 25 years of neglecting it, we actually have something that's robust, it's good, it actually focuses on those growth corridors, things that are rural areas, rural. We worked very hard on that, 3.5 years and several $1 million, the commission, mayor, and we worked with the public to find a path. We now have to actually follow it. But you can't do that when you have old, outdated zoning laws that don't match. That's the UDO. So how do you match the actual laws with it? And if you could imagine a Big Mac on the floor with 37 Big Macs on top of it, stacked all of that, that's what we've been working with for so long. We're trying to slim that back down to sort of maybe one double-sized Big Mac with a couple of key layers that are focused. But one thing I would change with it is I think that if it follows the law and follows the plan, we should have more use by right, where you don't have to then go to the last step of coming to a legislative body that then is going to change something at the very last minute. And so I think if it's very basic and it's A plus B plus C and you follow that law, as an investor, as a developer, as a builder, as a property owner, you should be able to follow that without then having the rug pulled up from under you at the last minute.
I'll say something, starting off with something similar to what he was just saying, but I think that, business really needs stability from government. I think planning is good, and seeing with our outcomes that we've outlined, and planning is good. I also think it's great that we had all the input going into the plan, but I think when it comes to making things that should just go through planning commission have to go to the county commission, I don't think that's a good idea. I think people should have the freedom to develop things as long as they're working within the rules. I think that I have heard concerns from some business owners when it comes to some of the additional layers that we added in the video when it comes to the future land use zoning map. I think the way that they've layered on these lot size restrictions and everything like that, it's stopping them from developing more density than before. I think we should protect the rural area character and farmland of farther out in the county. But I think those would be the only things that I would tweak would be maybe looking at those additional layers of any aggregator company from developing in a way that's more sustainable.
Board Member Henderson.
Thank you so much. So, by law, we have to have a plan that sets the vision for Knox County for the next 20 to 40 years. So I served on the Advanced Knox Committee as board chair, so I had a seat at that committee. The purpose of that committee was to then vote that plan up or down, and then that plan then went to county commission, city council, and the town of Marietta. I was one of 2 no votes on that plan for 2 reasons. We had a lot of folks coming to public forum telling us this is not the plan, this is not the draft that we were looking for. I think that the county did a great job on the front end of getting that community input, and when they put the draft plan together, the community spoke and said this is not what we were looking for. And there are many of you know Colleen Cruz, she's a good friend of mine, Cruz Farm Ice Cream. She said, this is, as a farm owner, as a business owner, this isn't what I'm looking for. So listening to the community. And then also this plan puts 9,000 acres of rural land in the growth zone. So for those 2 reasons, I was a no vote. We talk about how the plan is putting development and growth on existing corridors. I say, come drive these roads with my 17-year-old son and tell me that's existing infrastructure. It's not. So that is why I voted no against that plan. And I agree with Bo. I think we need to bring businesses to the table. I'd love to see businesses have a bigger seat at that table. Again, protecting and promoting them, making sure that we have light regulations for businesses so that they can grow and new businesses can come here as well.
Okay, and so you now have a minute to respond if you want to follow up or address anything that anybody else said.
Sure. So as a citizen, I want you all to know that I formed several community groups that were advocating for intentional growth and coordinated infrastructure. And so I've attended over 100 county meetings and community meetings that dealt with growth and development. So as Ms. Henderson said, the state does mandate that every county have a growth plan. In Knox County, we did that. In 1998, they did public chapter 1101, mandated growth plan. Knox County responded, implemented in 2001, and then we never looked at it again. So 25 years of monthly rezonings happened, meaning every month someone was bringing forth a parcel to be rezoned, and then never looking at it again. So when it was time to update our map, what we found were thousands of acres that had already been rezoned from ag to PR, limits to residential, commercial, that were still in that mandated rural area. And so it only made sense to then move those into what we call now the plain growth area. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit. I also wanted to explain that we never heard any of these concerns that were mentioned up until the day of the final vote. Is the plan perfect? It's not. It's not. But it was the first step in being able to create a proactive plan for growth and to create something that's more comprehensive, which looks at growth from a bigger lens and it identifies the impact of growth and development on communities. And that is really important work.
Okay.
Did either of you want to follow?
I went to some of these community meetings, and I would love to see more intentional community input in some of these meetings. You go, and they give you some sticky dots, and they're like, here's a big poster with all these words on it. And some commissioners were like, this doesn't even make any sense to me. There's all these words, all these things, they drown people in information, so I would love to see those meetings more streamlined and more intentional community input for folks.
Okay, next question was Mr. J. Most of you have mentioned the need for infrastructure improvements. We know from talking to voters that that's one of the major issues that they see in the county. So given the county's budgetary restrictions, how can you afford to invest more in infrastructure while still providing services at the level that taxpayers expect?
That's the magic question, is that we balance growth with a booming economy with all of the needs that are behind it. When it comes to roads very specifically, I think there's a couple of things you have to do. One, you have to make it a priority, and you have to actually decide that you're going to focus on it. We should be paving about 180 miles a year, basic maintenance. We've only, max, we've done 60, we usually do 40 or 50. So every year we fall farther and farther behind, and so if you actually have excess funds at the end of the year, you want to put into the paving. If you have ways to actually focus on that, then you can get caught up really quickly. But I think the one way that I would switch the current model of kind of waiting for us to figure it out and waiting for the state to figure it out is I've actually proposed to the state a block grant model and a deed over model where basically the state routes, you guys know, Emory Road, Tazewell Pike, North Shore Drive, Washington Pike, these are state routes because they were built in 1700 or 1800 and they are not even on the list for improvements. So we're talking 20 years before anything gets going. What I propose to the state is let us be the speedboats of infrastructure. Give us the road. Why does it need to be a state route? Just because it was before? Give us the road and give us a block grant for say 80% of that road. Let us put in 20%. We'll build it faster, better, cheaper, in a shorter timeline that will then be able to support the infrastructure. With the growth of the economy that builds around it, we can pay for our 20%, get a block grant from the state, get onto it faster, and turn us into a more driven model on the local level.
Mr. Hawk?
Yeah, I think definitely pursuing grants and public-private partnership is a big part of it because this is the question that we're all talking about all the time. I mean, it's really difficult. But I think reprioritizing is definitely a good place to start. I think doing an audit of all of the road system that we have and having the hierarchy of priorities when it comes to what we need to maintain and having a more proactive approach with it. I think as we're talking about that, we can pursue some more funding avenues and just go down the list.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you so much for this question. We deserve infrastructure that supports our families, our neighborhoods, and our businesses. And, everything's a priority. Nothing is a priority. So it's really about prioritizing core services and then just getting government out of the way. So prioritizing roads, schools, safe neighborhoods. And, like I said before, a lot of our roads fall under the state and federal. And so having those relationships, I have a great working relationship with our state delegation and our federal delegation as well, and making sure that we are getting that money we deserve here in Knox County and, making it a priority.
So there's a lot of talk about roads, but I've actually been addressing roads over the last 4 years, working directly with Engineering Public Works. We've been able to go through 7 or 8 transportation mobility studies to pull those priorities of road improvement projects. We've also looked at our overall condition of pavement, and we have prioritized the paving across Knox County. And I have spent, I can't even tell you how many hours getting out into the communities and finding out the priorities and actually getting the roads paved. Over $100 million I've been working with Engineering Public Works to secure paving for our roads. We need more. I explained this a little bit earlier. We have a layered approach. We've got to get strengthen our participation in the transportation planning organization. But the other thing I did when I came on commission that had never been done in county history was I worked with the legal department and Engineering and Public Works and passed a resolution so that growth pays for growth. Meaning, if an applicant wants to come in and they want to put 300 houses in an area where we don't have planned infrastructure, we can require that applicant to fairly contribute to the improvements that their developments will require, instead of it being on your taxpayer bill.
Follow-up, Mr. Jim?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. The way I would actually approach it would be from the neighborhoods out. And we have some folks here from Mayoral on the north side of town. And this was a very, very typical neighborhood. Over half of our neighborhoods have not been repaved since they were installed. And so you had commissioner after commissioner that said, yeah, we'll figure it out. And they called and sort of said, please come walk with us and see it. And it needed to be repaved. Focused on it, got repaved. So I would actually start in everyone's neighborhoods, and then I would move to the Knox County roads. The biggest thing we feel is the congestion, and that congestion is real. We're now in the top 5% of most populated counties in the entire country. It happened overnight, and so it's definitely more congested. We've got to actually find pressure valves, put it in those like roundabouts, turn lanes, things that keep people moving, and then it will feel a little bit different, and then we move our state routes. But my approach would be to start in the neighborhoods and work my way out.
Mr. Hawk?
I would just add that I think that as growth is putting more pressure on our infrastructure, there's also an issue with the rising cost of housing pushing working people into neighboring counties and making our tax base that we currently have, which is already we're not getting that revenue in the county to maintain our infrastructure, it's going to continue to shrink. I think addressing the crisis that's going on with housing costs is going to be a big part of at least maintaining and growing our tax base so we have funds to address the issues that we have in infrastructure.
Listen,
There we go. I don't have a loud voice. I just want to say that, roads are obviously a priority and they're lagging behind, and you have to look at the people who have served on the board, who's been on a county commission for 4 and 8 years, and our roads are still lagging behind. So you have to look at the people that have been serving on the boards and what impact have they made.
Mr. Jim, you follow up?
You're all running as partisan candidates. There are a variety of factions within political parties in Knox County and plenty of voters who are not affiliated at all. How does your party label guide your governing style? Mr. Hawk?
It's an interesting question. I honestly, my work for years, I have really worked hard to frame everything that we're doing in nonpartisan terms. It's kind of new to me to be labeling myself. I kind of lost some sleep thinking about it. If I wanted to really jump in there, and because I've really been successful and really proud of how much work we've done at the Central Labor Council by getting people to work together regardless of political differences when we don't get sucked into all those big issues. So I think when it comes to governing, I would take a really bipartisan approach, and I would not be putting party first. I'd be putting what's good for the county first. I think that there's no Republican or Democrat way to change the law and fix roads. So.
I love this question. I am a proud conservative Republican. Yes, I'm a conservative Republican. I'm 1,000% pro-life. I believe in protecting the unborn. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I believe in not raising taxes. And I believe in the Republican platform from Donald Trump to our state delegation, our federal delegation. I am proud to say that I'm a conservative Republican. And it drives my belief system both professionally and in my family. And I'm proud of that.
Commissioner Frazier?
So as a lifelong Republican, we typically believe in fiscal discipline and also hard work. So questions that I ask myself with every decision that I face is, what's the community benefit and what is the impact on the taxpayer? We are responsible in our decision making, and we really do look at the issues and how they impact the people that we serve?
I think the national partisan pressure is not what it feels like on a local level, and it's not the reality of what it is on a local level. And I don't like I'm Republican, but it's to me the core tenets of I believe in the private sector and capitalism. I believe in the rule of law. And I believe in personal liberties and the government staying out of your life. Some really basic stuff. That gets really muddy the higher you get up in government, but I can tell you on a local level, 99% of all of our votes are 11-0. They're not 8-3. Because it's about those 5 core services, and it's about showing up, and it's about working through details. And you either live in the county part of the county, the city part of the county, or the fair part of the county. We're all in this together. And I think the county sometimes forgets that the city is part of the county, and the fair gets way out there, and it is too. And so it's about sitting down, and to me, my style is just common sense leadership, bringing people to the table, making a decision. I don't think you can have 15 committees and 45 studies. Sometimes you got to step up and you got to say this is where we're going. You have a board of directors, which is your commission. They represent all of the people. But as the CEO and the mayor of the county, you got to set a vision. You got to sit down. You got to bring people to the table. You actually have to accomplish something in a very, very short 4 or 8 years. So to me, one of my guiding principles is what can you actually accomplish in the time. So it's not about studies and lofty dreams. It's about actually serving people.
Woo! Mr. Hawk, take your add or respond to anything? Or anything? Commissioner Frazier? Commissioner Jay?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Anderson on this one. If you're elected mayor, one thing you will face every year is a request from the sheriff for salary increases. In recent years, the current sheriff has even threatened to take the county to court in order to secure pay raises. All of you say you support law enforcement, but given budgetary constraints, how will you prioritize those raises to keep the sheriff's office competitive with other agencies?
There we go. This is a great question, and I've talked to several people about this as well. So we've done this at the school system, and I'd love to see this done in the sheriff's office. One thing that is very important is making sure that our sheriff's officers and deputies are paid what they deserve. They need to be paid market value. They put their lives on the line every day for us and make sure that we have safe neighborhoods and communities. And so, as school board chair, this is something we did with teachers. And we made historical investments in our teachers without asking for any more money, without asking for a tax increase. And so it can be done, and I'd like to see this done in the sheriff's office as well.
Ms. Frazier?
That is something I would start with salary study. It needs to be done. We also need to structure the pay scale in the sheriff's office. I've actually talked with their HR department and also the finance director and also the 4 candidates for the sheriff. We really do need to overhaul the entire pay structure for our sheriff's officers. What many people don't know is when we gave the highest historical raise to our sheriff's officers just a couple of years ago, they had to give up 30 positions in able to do that. 30 positions, and we're a growing county. And so it is a challenge. It is a challenge, and it has to be a priority to focus. And it will be, but it's going to take collaboration, working with the new sheriff. When you are the mayor, you don't get to dictate how the sheriff's office or the schools use their money. And so it has to be communication, collaboration, and discussion. And I've already started talking with those 4 candidates about ways that they already have ideas to cut expenses in-house first. And so it'll be a collaboration and ongoing discussion, and of course we will want to support them and do whatever we can on our side.
Mr. J.
No, I think it's a little disingenuous to say we did it in the school system because most of that money came from the state, not local. And it was state mandated, it wasn't local. When it comes to local, we have to decide what we want to invest in and what our community looks like. So when I went out, I've done 48 small group listening sessions in advance of this campaign all over the county. And when I sat down and asked people what are their priorities, and they listed infrastructure roads, law enforcement safety, public education. And I asked them, are you willing to invest in those things and actually do something about it instead of kind of being mediocre? And so we've got too big of a county and we're growing too fast to sort of put our head in the sand and say we're not willing to do this. So to me, it's about sitting down this summer when we go through the next reappraisal and figuring out what is the appropriate level that we should pay them. If anybody who's ever been in business knows that if you lose one employee, it costs you twice as much to find another one, train them, and bring them up. It costs almost $100,000 to train an officer. And you lose them because they can make $5,000 more at the city or $10,000 more in another county. You've lost all of that revenue and you've lost all of that impact. And so to me, that is where I said we're underinvesting. We've got to overinvest in that area to make the best law enforcement in East Tennessee, to really hunker down and show up and do it. Don't just talk about it. And I think that we can do it. We've done it before, but we've got to also figure out what the appropriate investment from our community as a whole.
Ms. John?
I think a good point's been raised that there needs to be collaboration with the sheriff and the sheriff's office, and we need to do the research to figure out where we're at as far as being lacking behind in competition with neighboring law enforcement agencies. I think that it's also, like others have said, a matter of priority, because I think just like with infrastructure, part of the strain that's happening is that includes emergency services, it includes law enforcement, and I think it does cost us more money in the long term to not invest in our officers. And I would also say that I think when it comes to the total compensation package, looking into any modifications that have been done to pension benefits and coming up with a remediation plan for that, and addressing the issues that happen there. I think it's already within the bounds of what the county can do in the charter, because it's just a matter of enforcement, because it prevents any modifications, production in those benefits. So I think addressing those retirement benefits for the deputies would be a big step in the right direction, and working on salary.
Follow-up, Ms. Anderson?
Yes, thank you. So, one thing that we did do in that, we talked about the pay scales. That's something that we streamlined at the school system when we redid the teacher pay. Commissioner Jay talks about that. We had state funding, so it was a multi-layered approach. We had extra state funding that, guess who fought for? Me. I was on a committee and got a majority of that state funding. And we also asked each department and central office to cut back 5%. So by investing that money that I fought for and cutting back, we were able to give those pay raises, and we restructured the pay scale. So I'd love to see that done in the sheriff's office. When I started on the school board, we had over 100 vacancies of teacher positions that were unfilled. We started this school year with less than 10.
Ms. Fraser, follow-up? Mr. Jay? Mr. Rock?
Commissioner Jay has proposed phasing out the wheel tax, which provides about $15 million a year in revenue to the county. It's also a primary source for county libraries. So A, what is your position on phasing out the wheel tax? And B, what funding needs do you see for our libraries, and how would you address them in the future?
So I would not be in support of phasing out the wheel tax. We're just not positioned fiscally as a county to do that. We need that revenue. It is part of our paving budget. We can't afford to lose that. Our libraries are essential to the education of our children, and they are part of our infrastructure. We need to support them. And so I would not be in support of doing that.
Should I go and wait till everybody says no and then say yes? Okay. I am in support of it. I introduced this last year for a couple of basic reasons. One, when I think the government, when it makes a promise to you, it ought to keep a promise. And 23 years ago, it was proposed, if you get a wheel tax, then we'll build you a new downtown library and a justice center and a bunch of other things. They did build some stuff, they built some schools and senior centers, but the main promises were not kept. And then I just don't like double taxation. It's really simple. If it reads in the code, for the privilege of using the public roads and highways, we install a privilege tax. For using the thing you've already paid for, we give you the opportunity to pay us again. And I just don't like double taxation, man. So I don't like promises not being kept. I don't like double taxation. 6 of our surrounding counties. And we can afford it. So I introduced it last August. The commission said, let's wait 6 months and see where our economy is. We waited 6 months, we came back. At that time, it was last month, $8 million ahead.
We were $8 million ahead on our revenues, and we were under budgeted for our expenses. So we were about $10 million to the plus. I proposed a 5-year rollout, which phase out, which would cost $1.7 million the first year, and a little bit more each year until we phased it out. So if you're $10 million ahead, do they keep cutting me off on purpose? I'm going to tell them, I'm going to make the panel guy just put his hand up for you. We're $10 million ahead on our budget for the year, and it's cost $1.7 million. We can afford to do it, and we can still fund the libraries and our paving out of our general fund. I just want to move the things that we're funding from this bucket to this bucket and return a little bit of promise in the government back to you. Put money right in their pocket, which I think is good.
Yeah, I think as the budget stands right now, and without having secured the funding to replace it, I think I'm not in favor of phasing out the wheel tax. I think maybe looking at modifying it, making it lower. We've got cheaper vehicles or something like that. There's interesting things to look into. But I think as long as it's funding our library system, I think a lot of these kind of forms we talked about, but I mean, it's something I'm really passionate about is the library system. It's for me personally, it's the reason that I'm as literate as I am today. So I think it's incredibly important that we preserve an institution that is that vital to our community. So yeah, I don't do that.
School board member Anderson. Thank you. I'm a little confused because Commissioner Jay says that we can afford it, but then he also says we're going bankrupt as a county. So I'm a little confused about that. So I don't know. I'm always for phasing out any taxes. I made a commitment to not raise taxes. So I'm always for phasing out taxes. But I do find the timing of it a little convenient.
So I'll take care of that. I introduced this last year, long before the election cycle, and we can't afford it. Just imagine, forget the government part. Imagine I was the new CEO of a $1 billion company, and I came to you and the board and I said, I would like to cut 0.15% of our budget. 0.15% of our budget. And oh, by the way, our revenues are going to exceed that, so we can move this from here to there. You would think that's kind of a no-brainer, right? First tax cut proposed in the last 25 years. First one. We can afford it. Sometimes you can shoot down and walk at the same time. The reason we're on a fiscal cliff, which I'm sure you're going to get to, which Ms. Henderson referred to, was 20 years ago they did interest-only bonded debt, which is balloon payments that are going to come due. And in 4 years, we're in a critical mass where we can't pay our bonded debt without cutting significant services. We have a looming debt crisis we've got to deal with, but if we as a company cannot cut 0.15% of our budget and still figure out a way to move forward, then boy, we're in the wrong business. And I think that's the business-minded CEO approach that I would take. We can do it, and we can fund the libraries, which I believe. Sorry, held up 2 panels, so that's really stop. Sorry.
Commissioner Frazier. Thank you. I just want to give you some information. So typically the public sees a $1.1 billion operating budget, right? And so by state statute, most of our revenues are mandated allocations. So services that we have to provide to you. And there's required and there's authorized. And so right off the top, we're looking at $743 million for schools, gone. $115 million for law enforcement, gone. Then you have our debt payment, $86 million, gone. Pensions, $17 million. So what we are looking at is actually about $139 million of flexible operating dollars to provide services for over 500,000 people. And so any cut that you make, that percentage is coming from that $139 million. Now, what the public also doesn't understand is that there are lists and lists and lists of identified needs that the county has. Also, every department across Knox County has competing priorities. So all of those identified needs and those competing priorities are all trying to get a piece of that $139 million.
School board member Henderson. Again, it's about prioritizing good roads, good schools, safe neighborhoods, get out of the way. 2 of my priorities are in that, schools and safe neighborhoods. So I'm here to have $139 million to work on roads. I'm just kidding. But it's all about prioritizing. And as school board chair and as a school board member for the past 5 years, one of the things that we've dealt with is we need more money, we need more money, we need more money. Throwing money at a problem doesn't solve a problem. It's about living within your means, and government should serve the people, not the other way around.
Mr. Hop.
Same for my regarding capacity for the next question.
Well, Commissioner Jay mentioned the fiscal cliff, and that would be a delight to talk about, but we're out of time. So we're going to give each of you 2 minutes to make closing remarks. You're free to discuss the fiscal cliff in the 2 minutes if you want to. And we'll go in the opposite direction we did with the introductory remarks. So we will start with Mr. Jay and work our way back down the table.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I really appreciate your attention and your engagement. I think when you go to the ballot box, hopefully tomorrow or during early voting or sometime in the next few weeks, I just want you to think about your family, your company, maybe your family business, the company you run, and think about if you had to choose one of us to be the CEO of your company, who would you pick? Who has the most experience, the most education, the most ability to bring people to the table, and the actual role of being a CEO. I think it's important to hire somebody that's actually done the work. So I have 38 years of work experience, 20 years of executive leadership experience, and I've been a CEO and president of companies, and I've started 6. And so, yes, it's policy and it's politics, but at the end of the day, it's those 5 core services. And so I'm stepping forward, and I'm hoping that you'll allow me to lead you in the county in a bright future. What we have to do is deal with really big challenges that are ahead of us, and they're not going to go away. And so the only political promise I've ever made is I don't want to go to Nashville or Washington. So I'm not going to get in office, leave you high and dry, and deal with these issues and run for another office. I'm going to show up, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to be honest with you, tell you the truth, sit down and figure a way through it. Because every decision the next mayor makes is going to be critical to the next 20, 30, 40 years. If you don't have the right mayor now, your kids and grandkids will not be able to live here and not want to live here. So it's about proactive leadership. I believe I have the credentials and skills to do it. I think I have the vision to do it. I'm looking for you to give me the opportunity to step forward and to lead this county into a very, very prosperous future while we also deal with things that need to be taken care of with executive leadership experience. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I hope I earned your vote. And please, just go vote, if nothing else.
Ms. Frazier.
Thank you. So I believe that Knox County deserves steady, measured leadership that understands the job and knows the issues. I hope that you have seen that my experience and knowledge as a proven and effective community advocate, business professional, and countywide commissioner has prepared me to be that leader. When I ran for commission, I made one promise, that I would always put people and community first. And that is exactly what I've done as your commissioner, and that is exactly what I'll do as your next Knox County manager. I hope that I have earned your consideration tonight. I encourage you to go out and learn more about me. Go to my website. Heck, just Google my name. You will see that I am someone that has been showing up when it is about people and community, not a campaign or position. I've been showing up for you. I would appreciate your vote. The voting starts tomorrow. Get in there while you can. No lines, I promise. But the Republican primary on May 5th if you don't get a chance. Thank you.
Ms. Sanders.
When government gets out of the way, families and businesses truly thrive. I made a promise years ago to always put the needs of your family first, and I promise to do that as your next Knox County mayor. I'm a proven leader. I have stood up, I have been tested, and I have delivered real results. Look at any candidate running for office, you have to ask yourself, has this person saved and made cuts? Have they used those cuts and invested them wisely? Have they challenged the status quo? Which candidate fought for my family and my business during COVID? You have to look at who has made the biggest impact on the board in which they served. I humbly ask for your support and your vote. Early voting, as you know, starts tomorrow, and I ask for your prayers as well. Go to my website, betsyhenderson.com. I have rolled out a Crossroads plan, which is a conservative blueprint for the future of Knox County. And again, I ask for your support and vote. Thank you.
And Mr. Hoffman.
Again, thank you for having me. I think, everybody up here has different kind of leadership qualifications that you can look at and considering who you want to vote for. I look forward to having a conversation with anybody after that would like to speak again and talk more about my platform. But I think, beyond what your leadership experience is, and which I do have, and showing up and work and getting to work with people, I think really understanding what is going on with constituents in this county and what they're going through, the kind of struggles that they're facing is really key. I think looking at the deputy whose pension was gutted, the small business owner who's competing with outside corporations that's getting all the county contracts while people are getting left behind, the young family that's getting priced out of the neighborhood that they grew up in. I think these are all the kind of things that are going on in the county that we have to have a vision of how to move forward and build a future where people can actually put down roots, start a family, and build a future for themselves and their children without having to worry about if they're going to get the lights on or pay the rent. I think that affects the business community as well, because if you do not have a thriving working class in this county, you're not going to be successful. You're going to need those people to be there. So I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to earn your support, and I would appreciate your vote on this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to all of the candidates for coming. It's great to see all of you here and engaging in this kind of discussion. Thank you to all of you for being here. This is a great crowd. Thanks to our host and sponsor, Seth Barber with Barbarian Productions, and he wanted me to let you know that this entire debate will be available both on his YouTube channel and on the Almost in Agreement podcast. So you can share that with anybody you know who wasn't here. And now you can apply. Thank you all so much.
Two people have to vote.